usually starts 10
right
seconds
now. Like when it says broadcast live.
It says broadcast live 2 seconds later than everybody else on my computer. Okay,
really?
I don't know why it does.
Well, it says broadcast live now.
Brilliant. We are live. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
We are back with Shining Girls this episode. If you haven't paid attention, it is on Apple TV right now. It is starring Elizabeth Moss, and the original book is by Lauren Beukes. But I am jumping ahead of myself. My name is Chloe. This is Erin. We are actress ladies and general creatives, and we do this little show called Read.Watch.VENT, where we read books and watch the shows and movies that they have been adapted into, and then whine about whether we liked it or not. I take that back. We don't whine about it. We vent about it, and then, discuss the story structure that would have been able to be improved had they consulted us when they were doing this adaptation.
Yeah. Chloe does that. I definitely whine a little bit.
Yes, but this commentary is coming from artists who love other artists and just generally like discussing cool story and cool adaptations and movies and all that stuff. So if you are watching us live, please join in the comments and let us know what you think. If you're watching this later, please feel free to still message us. You can message us in the comments and we'll reach back out. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. That's about all I got. So other things, spoiler alert, we will be discussing the entire show and the entire book. So if you are intending to watch this, maybe come back.
Later.
Maybe come back. But definitely come back and let us know what you think. But if you are, on the fence about watching it and are okay with looking at an entire discussion about it, please continue. For those of you who have not read this book, Erin, do you want to do like our lovely 30-second condensation?
Yes, of course.
Of the story.
Okay. So you got a dude named Harper, mysterious guy, talking to girls, like little girls. And it's like, ooh, that's a creepy way to start a book. Until you realize, oh, he can time travel. That does not make him less creepy. It makes him more creepy because he uses his time traveling house, yes, an entire house that time travels, to find women to murder. There's like a whole creepy murderer room that has like little trinkets and names of women. And so he like thinks of a creepy day and goes and finds those women and then kills them because he is a very, very bad man. And he does this across decades and decades and decades of women. So throughout the story, more importantly than creepy dude, you have all of these different women and all of their very, very interesting stories, which, like, I wish I could name them all, but that's way, way less than 30 seconds. But the main chick that we focus on is a gal named Kirby, and she got attacked by this creepy dude, and she didn't die. And that becomes the big problem, because she starts trying to find him with a guy named Dan, and they're doing reporter stuff and investigation stuff, and it's true crimey and murdery and history-y. But yeah, overall, it's very much encapsulates. It's an every woman's story.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna say not really, but yes, actually, because most of them actually dealt with maybe not trying to be murdered, but some sort of like aggression or violence in this way. You either have dealt with it or you know someone who has.
Yeah. And so just all of the different women that we follow throughout the book are from all different walks of life in all different time periods. Like, they touch on some really prominent like issues.
We will get to this.
Your
30 seconds is done.
It was way more than 30 seconds, but yes.
But overall, it's like a thriller. It's a serial murder book. And it's really about what we do with trauma. Like, how does trauma follow us? How does it change us so that we have trouble relating to other people? And how do we break out of that trauma cycle? Yeah. It's cool.
Trauma. This is not a fun book per se, but it's also not an unfun book.
Well, it's for all of us who love true crime. Like literally, I don't remember what TikTok I was, but there are so many TikToks about like, my girl is so sweet, and then she comes home and eats ice cream and watches these shows about serial killers, so don't mess with her.
Yeah.
Like I feel like at a certain point at this point in society, all of us are just like, this is how the world works. Let me see how to like identify these creeps.
This is so I used to listen to rather religiously My Favorite Murder. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is that they're women who are it's like a true crime comedy podcast. They tell these true crime stories that are awful and involve murder and death and terrible things happening to terrible people, but they infuse comedy into it, not by like trying to make fun of the tragedy, but because they have anxiety and they're like, this helps us cope and also makes us feel more prepared for what would happen. What do we do when this inevitably happens?
Fair. Yeah.
It's bad.
And I think like for more than women, for like a broader audience, for the other half of the gender world, this shows like this and books like this are a helpful view into like, okay, no, this is how it feels. Put yourself in these shoes and realize how frightening this can be and how fast it can go bad.
Yeah. Well, I think.
So let's start. Okay. I feel like the plot of this story is it's a serial killer show. It's a serial killer story, right? So we have the murderer, we have the girl who's trying to track him down, and the mystery is, will they find each other?
In time.
Well, and there is this sort of weird countdown in the book that's lacking in the show.
Yeah.
But let's start out by discussing the characters, because you're right. The characters in this book are like, they span basically from World War I era and like coming right back from the Great War all the way up to the 90s. And so you have women from like every decade, and this man found them as children, was creepy periodically throughout their lives because he could hop into any day that he wanted. And basically when they were good and ready and had lost their shine, he would murder them.
Okay, I'm so confused about the whole shine thing, because they call it the Shining Girls, but neither in the book or in the TV show do they actually discuss what the shine is or why exactly he picks them. But here's the thing that I wondered, based on what he said. Is he snuffing out their shine, or does he kill them once they have lost their shine? Because I thought he was snuffing out the shine.
I think he is snuffing out the shine. And the first girl who's like literally glowy because of the radium that he kills, it's like he's literally making her stop glowing. Mm-hmm. But I think the shine is also pretty well tied to in a couple of those characters to their like vitality and their sexuality. Like he has this very puritanical view of he objectifies all these women, but simultaneously hates them for making him objectify him, and kills them for that.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, it's a very weird, like sexual control sort of situation, which again ties the crime that he's doing to a lot of other kinds of traumas, because I feel like that's also a very familiar thing that women of all kinds, women and femme presenting people, deal with, because we need to be sexualized, but also we're bad for being sexualized or acting on any of our own sexual urges or anything like that. And yes, Angel Chris, he does sound like a Capricorn. The control freak.
Pull up the chat right now.
The control freak of them is just like, no, you're not going to do what I want. You're dead. You can see that in the fact that he needs them to be just right, so he starts grooming them when they're small.
Yeah,
he starts preparing them.
So it's really I find it very confusing and very meta, which is why it's nice to have another person here. He does this thing where he gives them little things, like either as children or he leaves them with each other. Because there were times like he gave Kirby a tiny little horse, a plastic horse, when she was a little girl. Yeah. But there were things like the baseball card and the button where he only left those on their bodies. He didn't give it to them.
Yeah, but they were still tied. Those were, so one of the things that makes this book, and this was part of the criticism when the book first came out, was that the time travel jumps in the book are supposed to be confusing because our narrator, our primary girls, our victims, are unreliable narrators, which is what happens with women, right? You have this trauma happen to you, and then you go to the cops, or you go to your husband, or you go to your family, and you're like, hey, this happened to me. And everybody's like, are you sure? Did that actually happen? Are you remembering it right? Were you drunk? What were you wearing? Are you sure he meant that? And so she very purposefully, often without telling the reader, jumps timelines and changes stories. And it makes it very difficult to read, but I thought it was really cool because of what she's doing, because of the theme that she's dealing with.
You're getting so much shit that I didn't even think about. I'm like, wait, what?
Okay, but here's the thing. That's like a high literary technique, and it's a problem if you're writing it if your audience is expecting like a typical just like page-turning thriller. It makes it a more challenging book to read. And I think that might have been one of the things they were trying to fix when they sort of changed the rules of how things work in the show. Which we will get to in a minute.
Are you kidding me? It was even more confusing in the television show.
Yes, that's kind of fair. But I think they were trying to fix it. I just don't think they did it.
Okay. See, here's the thing about the difference between the television show and the
book.
The book. It seemed in the television show there was a lot more time jumping than there necessarily was for in the book. And by that I mean, in the book, then again, this is also a book, he would jump to a time, he would spend that time, and he would complete his action, which was to find these women, see them, and then kill them. That was the action that he would go through. In the television show, what made it so creepy is that, like, in the book, he went back to his room and there were all of those little talismans, the little trophies that he had, and he would come back and like replace them and things like that. And so he would know that he had already done this thing, but he had done the action all the way through and come back and completed that circle when he went back to the room. Versus the television show, he was leaving phone messages and pictures of these women on the same day over and over and over again. Little recordings that he had to have collected by going back to that same day at that same time repeatedly, over and over and over again, versus going through and completing his action and moving on to the next one, which is freakier for sure.
I agree. It made him, well, and here's the thing. The show shifted to the perspective of the victims, I think, a lot more than the perspective of the villain. The book made him out to be, right from the moment you met him and he walked through that front door, he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like he's bad and creepy, and we do not like him. I feel like the show flirted with making him a little bit sympathetic and a little bit like alluring in a way that the book specifically tried not to, which was an interesting shift that I didn't really like.
Well, it was one of those things of like they made him younger for the television, for sure.
Yeah.
Which
made it less creepy.
Yeah, which makes him, and he was a soldier and had the whole
trauma of his own, which at a certain point when you are literally like murdering when you're stalking children and grooming women over the course of years, I don't care that you had trauma.
Yeah.
You don't get to pull that card, so I don't think it's actually relevant.
Yeah. They tried to give the guy in the movie actual relationships with human beings when it's like, no, you're not capable of that.
Yeah.
Because you literally walk past dead bodies in the middle of the hallway and are like, here, let me kick back with a drink in my hand while someone's bleeding out in the hallway.
Yep. And in the book, he has one person that he connects with, and she is also a psychopath.
Yes.
She is also super creepy, but she does not want to be controlled by him. So he eventually ends up killing her too and being mad that she made him kill her because he doesn't because he lost control.
Yeah. Because she made him kill her.
Right. But she was also the only person he has a relationship with in the book is also another psychopath who was helping him do these crimes. And we don't have that connection in the show, which was unfortunate, in my opinion, for the adaptation of the villain.
Yeah. I think because it was, number one, they were dragging it out. They wanted to give the villain character more than just, I am killing people. And
also, we can't, we have to be forgiving of the fact that film is a visual medium. And books are a written medium, which means books, you can have like entire passages where you're inside someone's brain.
Yeah.
And you get all this insight into their motivation. And for a TV show, you have to show it somehow.
Yeah, you get all of that information while they're literally making a cup of tea versus you can't really do that.
Yeah. I want to talk about, so Angelique Chris pointed out that like the time travel like ties up this age-old problem for contemporary women and femme-presenting people. And that's like, I feel like that's part of the point of this time travel encapsulation. Like we have this problem and it's the same. This man is the same in every time. And he is targeting the same kind of women. And
not the same kind of women.
Well, he feels like they're the same kind of women. He doesn't, I don't think he cares what I don't think he discriminates. But the author presented in the book this incredibly diverse cast of women. There was an African-American woman, there was a Korean woman, there was a Hispanic woman, there was a trans woman, which I was so excited for there to be, because the way it was written was so much like she's just her. And then she's kicked out of somewhere because they're like, well, you're not actually a woman. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. And then we just move on.
Yeah.
And that's not why he killed her, though. He didn't kill her because she was trans. He killed her because she wouldn't be controlled and because he was upset with her sexuality.
But the thing is that, okay, the whole thing with her character versus the other characters in the book is, what was her name? It was something pretty.
Alice. It was Alice.
Alice, yes. Very sweet, very pretty. Alice. And in the, like, she kisses him, right?
Yeah.
When she sees him. Mm-hmm. So she's obviously had this awful thing happen to her. She's getting kicked out of her job, her home, her livelihood.
She works with the circus. She is a performer with the circus, and she has been passing as a woman for a long time.
She's an ooh la la girl.
Yeah. And then someone sees her changing and tells on her, and they're like, sorry, you got to go. This is a family show. And she's like, nobody knew And they're like,
She's
we
like,
don't care.
but it's really not. We all know that it's not a family show because you've got women who are naked.
Yep. So she leaves, and the only person who stays, the only person who seems to care about her is our villain. And he cares about her because she's different and because she's alone. And he sees an opportunity to groom her because she's vulnerable in that moment of losing everything.
Yeah. So they end up kissing at some point, and then he's like, I'll come back for you.
Yeah.
So he becomes this fantasy man in her eyes. And she dreams of running away with him. And I remember in the book specifically, like, he has a second where he's like, no, but I don't want to kill her. We could like be happy together.
Yeah.
It just made me so sad.
I don't know. I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was interesting, and I was excited to see that they were going to adapt it into the show, and I was very sad that they didn't. Yeah. I felt like they did a pretty good job of actually casting the show with a diverse core cast.
Philippa Sue.
Yes. Like there was a lot of diversity in that core cast. I will overlook the fact that it's Elizabeth Moss as the main character.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. The leaving out of Alice upset me.
Yeah.
Because you don't see characters like that written very often, and you don't see characters like that written well very often. And to have a character like that served up to you on a plate in such a dynamic space. Like, I thought that there was going to be, in the show, there is a girlfriend who shows up towards the end, and I thought maybe she was going to be Alice. She was simultaneously the shining girl, the first victim.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe she was also going to be Alice. Like a condensed character, but she's not. And I was sad about that.
Yeah.
Because it was a missed opportunity. I think it was a missed opportunity for some representation of a really good, really dynamic character. Because she
was so well written. So what this television show was, it was not the book The Shining Girls. It was elements of The Shining Girls that they then put into a television show. Because a lot of what they did was they took things, they mixed them up, they put them out of order.
And they fundamentally changed most of their main characters. Like, those were not the same characters in the show.
Yeah.
It was like the book was a little bit more of a traditional thriller where you have like this cat and mouse game. There's primarily viewpoint from the villain, and there's primarily viewpoint from the one girl tracking him. And it's a cat and mouse between the two of them. The show was just like, let's highlight the trauma and the victim, and that's kind of it.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Oh my God, there were some fucking lines in that show where I'm like, it pissed me off so bad because they were supposed to be like, I'm dramatic and he knew and he's affected my life so much, but they just sounded shitty and corny and pandering. Like, there were so many times where I just felt like it was so insincere when it came to Kate Moss's character. Elizabeth Moss's, sorry, I keep saying Kate Moss. Elizabeth Moss's
rendition of Kirby.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. There was, okay, so the thing...
Yes, Angelica Chris, there was a lot of Riverdale lines in here. Like 100%. And they were all, everybody around her was doing great. And then you give Elizabeth Moss a bunch of monologues that she's going to take at half speed and do a lot of her this thing into the camera. And it just takes a long time. And I'm tired of her playing the same character. I'm tired of her playing the same character. I'm tired of her playing the character that like can barely hold on. I'm like, you are a powerful actress and you have a big voice. Be somebody strong.
Okay, you know what? I actually did like Kirby. Okay, so they do this thing where instead of the house being the murderer being the only thing that time travels, somehow there is some link. Yeah, we're switching to the television show. Some link between Kirby and the murderer because he almost killed her. So somehow she gets caught up in the time loop.
So they're not really referencing it a lot, but they're bringing in string theory, basically, like string theory and quantum theory. And that's why Philippa So's character was important as the astronomer who's talking about galaxies that are coming together.
Yeah. So the whole idea was that when things would change, like an action or an event would happen, someone would die, or some big action, some big shift in the house or in the murderer's life or in someone's life would happen.
Well, we figure out in the show it's because he kills somebody.
Yeah.
Every time he kills somebody, this girl's reality shifts, and she's like, her desk is moved, or she's now married, which is super upsetting. And
she always has a different hairstyle.
She lost her job. The different hairstyle I liked because I'm like, okay, I can immediately tell what timeline we're on.
Yeah, no, it is easier to tell which timeline they're on when they shifted her hair. But one of the things that I enjoyed, actually, the part of Kate's character, not Kate, Elizabeth's character.
We're just going to call her Kirby. We're going to call her Kirby.
Kirby's character that I actually liked was that prior to her going through her traumatic event, she had blonde hair in this iteration. She was strong and she was confident. And like, I liked that version of the character because it was completely different from the mousy character that she played after that.
Which, okay, and I have very mixed feelings about this because I know, and I've actually read a couple of like reviews of this show from people who have gone through SA themselves, and they feel like that representation is a very honest representation of how difficult it is to recover emotionally. I feel like there's a lot of characters like that in TV right now, especially with shows like Handmaid's Tale, where we have almost reverse fetishized this victim space. And the original Kirby in the book is she has breaks with reality and she's struggling with some things, but she maintains actually a lot of strength, and it was aspirational in a way that I found the Kirby of the TV show kind of defeatist almost.
Yeah. Like the Kirby in the book Kirby, she was not the springy, adorable little girl that she was. She was like, she had hit some hard knocks. She was a hard punk gal because, you know, life hit her in the face. Like, but she had drive. She was a fighter for sure. And I mean, eventually Kirby evolved into that.
She did,
but it was a very weird transition.
And it was so sudden. And this happens with Elizabeth Moss characters a lot. They start out in this weird, like, I can barely stand up, I'm so traumatized phase. And then just randomly, right before the climax, they're like, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah.
And they just change, which is jarring. It's just jarring.
I understand it was one of those things that, okay, this was kind of shitty, but I thought this, like, I felt like this was shitty of me, but also I kind of thought this. So she starts off with this rough, choppy, like short haircut. And when she starts off the show, she's totally traumatized, like working in the archives, got no one to help her, be with her, blah, blah, blah.
She's alone. She's very isolated.
Very alone.
Yeah.
Then the first or like big shift happens. Big shift meaning her hair changes. Happens after she starts picking up on clues and getting somewhere with the mystery. And her hair became longer and her clothes became nicer, and she suddenly had a husband and was better respected in her workplace, and had friends. And I was like, oh, so she's growing into herself, and now they've made her prettier. And then things go downhill, so they chop off her hair again with the next.
I didn't notice that in the design, but you're totally right.
Yeah, things go downhill for her, and they chop off her hair again.
Yep.
And then when she turns into a badass, they give her a badass haircut.
And she's all of a sudden wearing like black leather. She's got, like, a new look. And yeah, I love that. I hadn't noticed that about the design team, but yeah, go props, design team. Yay. Yeah.
No, but the thing that like struck me is that she goes from being this person who can barely move, and then by the end of the show, she is literally, they have a grand fight scene between Elizabeth Moss and the bad guy who was an army veteran in World War I.
Yep.
She kicks his ass.
It was very satisfying.
Throws him all over the place. And I'm like, how did you go from this to being trained in how to beat a military guy?
In fairness, the World War I guys were not well trained. They literally got guys off of the farm and were like, here's your gun. That's what happened. That is true. There wasn't a lot of training.
That was true. Which also, like, oh my God, they really did. Like, he wasn't a creepy old guy stalking little girls, but like one of his earliest things was a flashback to World War I, and the murderer literally yanking a gas mask off of another guy and killing a fellow soldier so he can steal his gas masks.
Yeah.
So like, we knew he was shit.
We did know he was shit, but he had this socially acceptable veneer that he was able to like parlay into all sorts of things. I want to shift to the other characters a little bit, because I loved what they did in the show with the other men that were around Kirby, because it very clearly showed a number of different perspectives on how men handle women in their life that they care about who are going through trauma. And it was much clearer than in the book. I don't think that dynamic was explored very much in the book.
That is true.
We had two primary characters that were helping Kirby. One of them was Dan, who is also in the book, but was a completely different character in the show. He's an alcoholic. He's a single dad who's really bad at it. He's a struggling journalist, and because he's an alcoholic, like critically alcoholic.
Versus Book Dan, who
is a good journalist.
He is a good journalist, but he has fallen down on his luck. And the fact that he stopped doing what he was really good at, which was homicide stuff, and is now doing
sports writing.
And he is a recovering alcoholic.
Yes.
So
they just brought his trauma to the fore.
Yeah.
And then you also have a new character that they added, which was her husband, who was a photographer at her sometimes husband. Depends on what timeline she's on. Yeah. But for most of the show, he is her husband. And
was his name Martin?
I think Martin. Yeah.
Martin.
Actually, let me double check that. His name was Marcus.
He was very sweet.
He was,
for the most part.
Well, and the parts where he wasn't sweet, he just didn't know. Like, he'd be like, I don't understand you, and he'd get frustrated, and it hurt her, but he wasn't getting frustrated out of a sense of like, I don't care. He was just like, I don't know what you mean, you didn't marry me.
Yeah, no, that was the thing that I did notice. I thought Marcus's character was so real and beautiful. Like, in the fact that he was so understanding,
Yeah.
so kind, so like eager to protect her, which, you know, is not always a good thing. Because as it shows,
it is a naturally societally like programmed thing for guys to do.
Yeah, to feel
When
protective.
Really, she wanted to be able to have support to take care of it herself.
Yeah. But then again, in a way, so Marcus throughout the whole thing, like he's Kirby goes throughout her entire existence after the event having to write a notebook to herself about what her life is like, what conversations she has had, where her desk is, because things will change literally in the blink of an eye or the next day that she wakes up. Her dog is a cat. Now her desk is in a completely different section. Instead of being an archivist, she is now a reporter at the newspaper. So when she gets to the timeline where she's married to Marcus, she's kind of like, I didn't marry you. She stays very distant, and he's very much like, hey, what's up? Talk to me. Why?
Yeah.
Because I am your loving husband. And then you even see moments later on. I actually had hope that they would be able to work it out and end up together, because there were cute moments after her hair got long that they looked like they were going to be good together.
And now she's stuck in the house.
I know. So after they have done these cute things, and after they have established this level of trust that, you know, makes everyone believe that everything is going to be okay, Kirby actually tells him the truth, that things change on her and things get different, and it's no bueno, and he like
does exactly the wrong thing.
Yeah. Like a loving husband, protective husband would do, goes to his, and here's the shitty thing,
Goes to his,
tell him it was a wrong decision.
No, you can't.
You can't tell him it's a wrong decision, because he hears his wife saying that she's having amnesia. So he goes to their boss and is like, she's being overworked. This is affecting her mental health. You need to give her leave of absence because she won't help herself. And that's a logical thing to do for someone you care about.
Yep.
But at the same time, she comes along, she's like, no, you don't get it.
I was so close.
I'm getting close here. I'm about to break through. And he's like, I'm worried for your brain. I'm worried for your mental health. Let me go home. Let's go home. Let me take care of you. And she's like, no. And it was one of those things where it made me so mad, because I'm like, dude, that's the exact wrong thing to do. But also you can't blame him, because in any situation where someone's telling you, my mind is so broken that I can't remember who you are, you're going to be like, honey, you need to take a sleeping pill.
Right. Like, let's get you to a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be working right now. It broke my heart.
One thing that I
love, are you destroying my ship?
One thing that I loved in the last episode was, so Elizabeth Moss's character Kirby has been following a girl who is going to be a future victim. Mm-hmm. In the book, she is an actual victim, but in the show, Jin Suk is like, she just continues. She doesn't actually die. But Kirby has been
really quickly before we get to Jin Suk. Were there any murders in the book after Kirby?
No.
Yeah.
No.
There were no murders in the book after Kirby.
Well, because she kills him.
No. I mean on the timeline. Because we know there were all those.
Because he has the house won't let him go past a certain date, remember?
Exactly. So,
and it's the date she kills him. So the book has the book has time travel rules. They're very lightly stated, but the book has real well thought up time travel rules. So if you like time travel stories, you'll love taking apart this book and how it works, because the book has the end going first and the guy figuring it out. He doesn't even know he's done these things when he finds the house.
Yeah.
He has to figure out how to do them in order to fulfill all the things that he sees on this little vision board that he has made for himself in the past. And the house will let him travel all over the place, but the house won't let him go past a certain date in the 1990s because Kirby kills him, and he doesn't know why. But I was telling this to one of my other writer friends, and I was like halfway through the book, and I'm like, yeah, the house won't let him go past this date, and my friend was like, oh yeah, because he dies, and I was like, what? And then that happened, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
makes sense. But Kirby, what I mean is Kirby in the book doesn't interact with anyone who is about to die. But are there any, I don't think that there are any murders that are even attempted after her attempt.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So that is the difference.
Because in the book, he's trying to find her.
Yeah.
Because he's upset that she's still alive. He figures out that she's still alive. And Angelicris, so if you want to know, spoiler alert for everybody, in the book, he does die. She kills him. And then everybody leaves. She gets to go back to her life and feel like she has like vanquished a demon. And then the house finds another creepy guy. So it's like, it's got this very like ghost story-esque ending. That this house is this house is evil. That's my interpretation. So yes.
Yeah.
The villain dies I don't know if it's painful, but she fights him and she shoots him and he's dead.
Yeah.
In the show, I was mad about this. I was mad about this because I was like, it's simultaneously like, it's the Elizabeth Moss feminine rage. She like throws him through the roof and she throws him around the room and she
hulks that bitch.
She does. And then she doesn't kill him. She returns him to his time with everything slightly changed. And now he hasn't been in the military and he doesn't have the social status and he doesn't know why he remembers being in the military. And his friend is like, dude, you never were in the military. You couldn't do it.
And the people that, the people that he hurt remember him and remember what he's going to do. So he can't do any of his sneaky, like, narcissist. You were right. He is a narcissist. Yeah.
He's 100% a narcissist.
He's 100% a narcissist. All of the narcissisty shit, mind games he plays with people by lying.
Kirby seems to set a loop in place where she can warn the girls about what's happening and she can go back and kind of fix the murders is what my interpretation of that was. Maybe, but she's also now stuck in this house, which the house is kind of, in the book, the house is bad. Like, people aren't supposed to have this power to just, like, hop around time.
Yeah.
Like a god. It makes you kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's...
And the last shot of her, it should have been, I wanted it to be this triumphant, like, she's finally, like, solved it. Which is kind of what we got in the book and was kind of what we got when she was like, get the fuck out of my house. This is my place now.
Yeah.
I took it over. I claim it and you can't come back. Instead, the last shot is her sitting kind of like melancholy or like, did any of you guys ever see The Graduate? Like from the 60s?
I've not.
Okay. I think it's The Graduate.
I don't know why I was waiting for other people to respond with that. Like,
yes, it's totally
Angelicris. Yeah, I expected you to respond to that. No.
So The Graduate, like the last, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie that was made in the 60s, sorry, I'm gonna ruin it for you. This guy like falls in love with his neighbor's. He's a college kid. He falls in love with his neighbor's mom. And then ends up marrying his neighbor. And then no. She's going to marry someone else. And he steals her from the wedding. And it's like this big, like, yay, we like ran away from the wedding. It's weird. And it's like super exciting. And it's supposed to be funny. But then they get on a bus where they're like, they're going to elope to another state because the family is, going crazy because he was sleeping with the mom. And then he stole the
The daughter, he eloped with the daughter.
He eloped with the daughter who was engaged to somebody else. But they get on the bus, and the last shot is just the two of them like smiling, and then they kind of look at each other, and then they're just kind of like, and that's the and it was supposed to. Apparently, it played as a really funny joke back in the 60s. It does not play as a joke now. It plays as depressing and like nothing matters, and not in a funny way. And that was the feeling I got at the end of this show with Elizabeth Moss sitting on the couch with her true dog, Grendel.
Yeah. Well, kind of like, that version of her dog. That version.
Well, it's the version from the book. She had a big dog in the book.
Yeah.
And that's partly why she survived.
When they showed her when they showed in the book, she had a big dog. Yeah. When they showed her getting attacked in the movie, oh my God, I was so mad about that. Is that they allude to her being attacked the entire time. So the whole thing about Kirby when she gets attempted unalived, she's with her dog, and the dog comes and saves her from being murdered.
And dies, like gives its life for her.
Yeah, literally.
The reason she survives is not because she didn't want to die looking at trash, which is what they say in the show. It's because she wanted to get her dog to safety. Yeah. She like literally stands up with her guts falling out and carries her mastiff her to the road.
Big old dog. Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't understand how she did not die in the television show, because in the book the dog goes, bites the guy, so he gets distracted, he can't double check that she's dead, and then she runs, or
she
moves as fast as she can.
She passes out.
She's her dog trying to find help, and that is the whole big story behind it. Versus this one, it's literally, she has a tiny little floof of a dog who is she plays fetch with it on a leash. On a leash. The fuck? I have such issues. And then,
for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Erin loves details, and she's upset if you mess up her details.
It's just the simplest things.
And that was a good analogy. Like, that literary piece was a good analogy. That's one of those, I agree with you. That's some details I don't think matter. That detail I think does matter. But I think they were doing the same thing that you noticed with her clothes. I think they were trying to grow up her psyche. But I don't like it. Because she started out as a strong character. Like you pointed out, like when she's a young person before all of this happened to her, she was vivacious, she would dance, she would laugh with you, she was a bartender, she was super social.
Her clothes were cool. I liked her clothes.
Cool.
I liked her 90s clothes. Yeah, but that made me mad because I'm like, this is the major trauma that she had, and it was so like, that was the reason that in the book Dan remembered Kirby, was because she was the girl with the dog. Like, and they, in the same way that they eliminated all those beautiful, lovely other kinds of women, they eliminated the dog that I wanted. And I'm mad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I will say, I read the tagline for this show and I was immediately furious, and I thought I was going to hate it. And I was like, no, this is not the book that I signed up for. So I didn't hate it as much as I was expecting to. I actually quite liked a lot of it.
I liked it more after, but her hair had to change for the first time.
Yeah. I did feel like there were some pacing issues with the show, but that might just be because I don't usually watch like thriller drama shows, because I don't like them, because I don't like the pacing. I feel like they're slow and I don't like it.
Wait, there's something I want to vent about. Not even vent about, just like go off about Julia Madrigal.
Yes.
Fucking love her. Number one, we talked about how he would do the recordings and like literally send these women recordings of them being attacked. Yeah. Like audio of them being attacked, which number one, I thought that was a very great way to elevate the creepiness of the story.
Yes.
And the absolute insanity of that character. Number two, I thought it was very, very telling about how women feel these days, just in general, because those thoughts, no matter what, they run through your head. Yeah. Like, it's unfortunate, but you can't help not, because that's just the way life is. So that panic was just so real and evident in those things. But the character Julia Madrigal, who is the first victim that they cover in the television show and in the book, I loved this just one moment that they had where the murderer encounters her, and they're like making nice chit chat, and she's very sweet and he's very sweet, and then he goes and he says something about how you should really wear your hair, and he reaches up to her and she just goes, "Don't touch me." Yep. And then walks around to the person she's supposed to see, and she's like, "Hi," da da da, and goes on with her day. And I was like,
don't be polite.
Yeah.
Don't be polite.
Yeah.
This is a PSA to everybody. You do not owe anybody politeness.
Yeah, because another thing that they said on My Favorite Murder, typically politeness is what gets women killed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So fuck politeness. If you feel in danger or like feel
we're not even in danger. Just like I've had people like reach for me and I'm just like, I'm not in danger, but
no thanks.
Exactly. I'm not in danger. I just don't want you to touch me. I don't give you permission to do that. I don't know you.
That's
also maybe I have germs. Like, you don't know why I'm saying no.
Yeah. That stuck out to me though, and I'm like, what a badass. Yeah. She was also incredibly smart and incredibly strong, which is so much more than they gave to her character. Like, in the book, the majority of the killings were all of them were just out of the blue. The women had no idea it was coming, no way to prepare, nothing. They were just ambushed.
It was very Jack the Ripper sort of style, like murders. Like, I felt like that was very reminiscent.
It was one of those things of where it was also, he gave them just enough notice for them to know they were in trouble. Yeah. To feel that fear of like, oh, this isn't good. Yeah. So it was like, life is fine, everything is fine.
Oh no.
No, it's not. And then
lights
out, which I'm getting like chills right now because like, oh yeah. Ugh. Sorry. No, but yeah, Julia Madrigal, love her. Love
back to Jin-Sook and Philippa Soo.
Yes, love her.
So, okay, first of all, Philippa Soo is amazing. We also stand Philippa Soo. Mm-hmm. But there is this wonderful moment. So all of this stuff starts happening to her. She somehow gets pulled onto the timeline that's changing now. And
she's actually when things started to make sense. Because they started clarifying shit.
And the rules start making sense. Like, the first time this happens to you, you actually go backwards. You are no longer the head scientist. Now you are a tech who works at the museum. Like, you lose your career. You lose your standing. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody understands you anymore. And you feel crazy. But Kirby comes to her and is like, honey, you're going to be okay. Go along with what they're saying and take the time you need to figure out what's going on. And she has this it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, we need more women. This is why being vocal about these kind of things, especially when they've happened and you've had time to heal, helps. So that there are people that are in your community who you're like, I need to go talk to this person because I don't know what's going on.
But it was definitely, what I thought was interesting is that she was not in any way like soft about it.
Oh no.
She literally was like, okay, this is your life now.
Yep.
You're going to go about, you're going to do the things, because otherwise people are going to think they're nuts or you're nuts, and they're going to lock you away. Yep. This is what we do.
This is what we do.
It's not.
And I think the strong implication there, especially because she had gotten to her strong place, was you're going to be okay. It's going to take you a second, but keep going forward.
It was definitely, I definitely got the vibe of like, it was one of those things where, yes, it was calming, but also it was letting you know, like, it's going to be fine, but you have no choice.
Yeah.
Like, there is no other option. If you are going to survive, if you are going to function, you cannot fall apart.
Yeah.
You aren't going to fall apart because we all do this, but we all being the two of them, which like so much symbolism. Yeah. Shit.
I mean, they've extended this show for a second season, which I am skeptical of, because I don't know what you do with the second season with the rules that we have established.
Yeah.
Are there other houses? Like, does Kobe go crazy and start murdering murderers? Like,
I don't know.
Does that fix the problem? I hope not, because that's kind of what happened with Handmaid's Tale. It just like trailed off. It started out as the novel, and the first season was a great adaptation of the novel. And then it took this weird like left-hand turn into we just burn all the men. And it's like, the seasons now are, in my opinion, just the definition of just angry feminism, and they're not really helpful. And they don't really have a track. Like, 1 second we're doing a spy show, the next second she's trying to be the mother, the next second she's like, it's all over the place, and the character can't figure out what she wants to do. I'm hoping that this one doesn't do that, but I don't know where you go from here.
Here's the thing. I thought that it would be a one-off because, number one, don't know where else they're gonna go. Number two, like, she had her big moment. She reclaimed the house, which is like her sense of self.
I think it was actually the mechanism of safety. Like, she closed the door on this guy. He cannot come into her life anymore.
Yeah.
It's a physical boundary.
Yeah, that is true.
He can no longer access the house to time travel.
Yeah. This is mine now. Okay, there was bleh. I'm not gonna go into it because it's a whole nother tangent. I was like, she's got her moment. She's got her claim to power. She's now like in that awkward final sitting in the house moment. I'm like, okay, so it's done, I guess.
Are you okay? Like, there was no release. There was no emotional. It was just like, it was static.
Yeah. Static is a great way of putting it.
Which was unsatisfying as a viewer. Because I was part of me was kind of like, well, what happens now? And part of me was kind of like, I don't know that I care, because I don't think you care.
Yeah. It's like she had her last hurrah, and then she blew all the energy on that. And then it's like, okay, we're done now. Blah, blah, blah.
Which is a weird place to end a season of television on. It's not a cliffhanger. It's not an ending. It just stopped. Yeah. Whereas with the book, we kill the guy. She goes back to her life. And then the house is like, come here, creepy drifter, and we can go, oh no, with the typical like horror movie ending where it's like, oh no, Jason Voorhees is still alive.
It's gonna start again. Yeah, the whole cycle idea.
Which is true to life. Like that, I felt
Yeah.
like was totally appropriate in the book because you're never going to vanquish this problem. This is a problem in humanity. With just a lack of humanity. It's just a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
And through the ages, just like Angelique Chris was saying, like this doesn't go away.
You know what I would be intrigued to see is what did those other people do with the house?
Well, we only know of one. The one other person used it to bet and gamble, and like in the show when he was like, "Thank God I don't have to use this house anymore," and I was like, "Was it making you crazy? Like, I want to know more about why you don't want to use the house anymore."
Yeah. Well, no, in the television show, so in the book, the guy, the murderer, first time he walks into the house, there's a dead body on the floor.
Yeah.
Like there's a dead body on the floor.
Not in the TV show.
That's in the book. And that is our murderer finds the dead body.
Which is super creepy. It's a great character moment for the murderer. He's like, there's a dead guy holding a turkey on the floor, and he's like, I guess I'll figure that out later. And he just continues to walk through the house.
And then later, not just like a little bit later, like a day or so later, he pries the turkey out of the dead guy's hands and cooks it and eats it. No, that bugged me so much. I was like, this is wrong. But this guy, the dead guy, was like some Polish guy. Through the time loop throughout the days, you find out it was the guy that was living there before, and then the murderer, after he's been living there, kills him, and that's how you get the dead body.
He gets to the right day, and it's like, oh, you're here. Oh, this is what we do now. Haha.
Yeah. So, in the television show, when the murderer first finds the house, this Polish guy is like hiding in a bureau. He kills him, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he kills him. The show is pretty good about not lingering on the violence, which I appreciate.
They linger on the trauma, but not on the violence.
Well, violence has been so like fetishized
that's true.
For a long time. Like there's a lot of over violence in shows that like you start watching it for anyway, that's a whole other stylistic discussion. But I think he does kill him in the show.
But what I wanted to point out is that this guy from Poland is obviously older than the First World War. So it's older than our murderer. In the television show, you see the Polish guy when he dies. You also see him discovering the house. And when he walks in, you see a pair of blue Jordans swinging above the staircase and a note that says, "All yours." So what is the symbolism behind like people owning this house?
I don't know.
Being able to touch.
I feel like the house is the thing to examine in the next season.
Season.
And in fairness, Lauren Beukes, who is the author of the book, is consulting on this show. She consulted on this season, and she may consult on the next season.
But really, what does consult mean? How much input does she actually get to have?
I haven't actually looked that up, but I know. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure because she is also a screenwriter. I'm pretty sure she's actually on
A Tale as Old as Poland. Poor Polish guy, wrong place, wrong time. Yes.
Tale as Old as Poland. For reals. Poland has had a very sad history, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so Lauren Beukes. So she's an executive producer. She is a television and a scriptwriter. And let me see.
And yes, what a good dog.
Okay, let's see here. Her novel. I don't know. I guess it doesn't say what exactly she's doing.
I always wonder when they say consulting, if it's like, hey, we're consulting your book.
Yeah.
And maybe being like, hey, so do you absolutely abhor that we change this? And then the poor authors having to be like, I mean.
Well, okay. So here, like inside baseball with making of TV shows, that is always a negotiation. That is 100% something that you and your agents negotiate, and depending on how much you want to be involved, like you fight for that, and you either get paid more or less depending on how valuable they think it is. Lauren Beukes she's credited as a writer on 8 episodes, so she had some.
Well, that's all the episodes.
Right, exactly. She's not credited as a director. So she had a decent amount of input. I don't know how much. And she would probably be bound by some sort of NDA, just in terms of like, well, and not even NDA, but just in terms of like not wanting to burn her bridges with Apple TV and other producers. To if she's not super happy with something, you just don't talk about it. Like that's how the industry works.
Yeah.
Those discussions happen passionately behind closed doors, and then
later, after it's released and you've gotten the check, you tell the press how much you hate it.
Well, you wait until the appropriate moment. You don't go ahead and
you don't volunteer that information, but if someone's gonna ask about it,
the classic one that just always makes me shake my head is the two guys that were the showrunners for Game of Thrones got done with Game of Thrones, and then they spilled all the tea, and they got themselves fired from HBO, and they got themselves fired from Disney, and they got themselves fired from Star Wars, and they got their Netflix deal like because they basically called everybody they worked with stupid, and we're like, we conned them into doing this, and then we stole a bunch of ideas from our fans, and the show was so easy. And yeah, they said we could do 14 episodes, but we were bored and didn't want to, so we just did 8, and we kind of half-assed those. Yeah, they said that at a Comic-Con panel, and it was after the show was done, but everybody was like,
fuck you.
Yeah, so you don't say that. If you don't like how something went, you just
unless
you're
Stephen King.
Unless you're Stephen King, in which case you're a god and you can
or
do no
Patty
wrong,
LuPone,
because you can print money with your books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But those guys basically showed their hand. They were like, we didn't know what we were doing. We still don't know what we're doing. We don't have any good ideas. We just get it from the internet. So everybody's like, well, I guess we don't need you, do we?
That's such... How stupid do you have to be?
You have to be a trust fund baby.
Why would you ever think it would be cool or funny to tell people how little you worked or how little effort you put into something?
If you're a trust fund baby, I'm telling you, these trust fund babies are a different thing. Okay, that we have totally digressed, but this is one of my favorite pop culture rants, because I feel like these guys totally deserve it. Also, sorry ahead of time. I think I desynced there, but I think I might be back.
The dog didn't deserve that. No, they did not. And Jelly Chris.
Cool. Okay, so we actually haven't had a discussion about what book we want to have next.
Oh. So I was looking up books and things. There was one that looked like it was turned into a shitty horror movie.
Love shitty horror movies.
It was called Down the Dark Hall? It sounded like a horror. It was turned into a horror movie.
Down a Dark Hall.
I lost my life.
With Uma Thurman?
Yes, it has Uma Thurman in it.
All right, are we committing to?
I have no idea what it is, but it said it was adapted recently, and I looked up the cast, and it was like a bunch of stars, and I'm like, I bet this is gonna, because it was like, it looked like it may have been about a girls' school or some shit.
Oh yes, Down Dark Hall by Lois Duncan. Okay, and Lois Duncan Lois Duncan is an old writer. So this would be a little bit more like this would definitely be, she did I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is what we did a little while ago.
Oh, shit.
So we could totally do another one of these because this is kind of fun looking at like old horror, new horror, and how these adaptations.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also because it's Anna Sophia Robb and Uma Thurman, and it's from the producers of the Twilight Saga.
All right, everybody. So we do this typically on the last Thursday of the month, unless either Erin or I have a show that we're in and that we can't make it. But typically last Thursday of the month around 8:00. Next month we'll do Down a Dark Hall. And then October, we're going to do Interview with a Vampire.
I'm so excited.
And that one might actually be early November because the show is dropping in mid-October, and I don't know how much of it will be out.
Yeah.
But you can follow us on here.
Also, we could possibly do a show where both of us are in the same place.
It's true. It's so exciting. Oh my gosh. So we live in just separate states, and we've never actually met personally, but
we live in November.
So that's that. Thank you so much for joining us, Angelique Royce. We appreciate you so much. Stop back next year, or next month.
See you next time.
Now.
Your comments were absolutely delightful.
And if you like tabletop RPG games, Uncanny Prose, actually this channel is primarily our Monsters of the Week tabletop RPG. We have this amazing urban fantasy Lovecraftian mystery thing going. And we play that on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Mountain Time.
I was watching it last Tuesday and commenting. I am sometimes one of the anarchists in the comments section.
Please.
Yes. So yeah, definitely go watch it. It's super fun. Chloe's amazing. And also I want to buy all of the stickers.
Oh my God. Well, Elle's doing a sale on the stickers. So yeah. So if you're watching us on Twitch, scroll down to Elle. And she's amazing, and she has a beautiful little store, and she's doing a set of tarot cards right now.
Fateful Designs.
Fateful Designs. Yep.
Oh my God.
They're so pretty.
Oh my God.
So anyway, she's awesome. You can find the link to her stuff in her bio down below in the About Us section. And we will see you guys next month. Love you guys. Thanks so much. If you have reading suggestions, message us because we would love reading suggestions.
Yes, please.
Okay. Anyway, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.